Hello, my name is Marek Pollitt, and I would like to invite you to the 10th part of the Grenton Academy, where you will learn about the enormous possibilities of Grenton Smart Home touch panels and see what their configuration looks like. You already know from the previous parts of the Grenton Academy that the main goals we set for smart home systems are, for example, improving security. The system, when it detects a flood, can automatically turn off the water supply to our home. It is also about optimal management of the energy used. The systems do this by using appropriate algorithms, for example, to control heating and, above all, improving the comfort of living in our homes. The Grenton Smart Home system accomplishes these goals, for example, by remote or local control from the application of devices or systems such as roller shutters, heating, lighting, or ventilation systems, but also by automatically controlling all of these devices. Thanks to this, for example, the roller shutters can open and close themselves every day, and we do not have to remember about it. And what is very important, this goal is also achieved through convenient and quick control, for example, from Grenton touch panels, thanks to which we can eliminate a number of other connectors or drivers that would normally have to be used in a house equipped with a traditional electrical installation. Comfortable and fast control is ergonomic control. This applies especially to those spaces where we have more devices to control. For example, in a living room with an open kitchenette, where we can have more light sources. In such a space, we can install 8, 10, 12, and maybe even more different lamps that we will use to emphasize certain moods or situations at a given moment in life. For example, a dinner or a party with friends. And to be able to control all these lamps, we will need a series of switches in our living room. Aside from aesthetic considerations, this type of use is unlikely to be convenient and certainly not quick to use. In addition to lighting control connectors, often on the wall we can also find a heating control thermostat, an air conditioning remote control, a ventilation controller, and maybe a few other drivers for devices that will be installed in this space. It will not be convenient for sure. Each of these devices will be operated in a different way, and we will have to get used to each of them or learn its functions. It can be done more easily. Instead of all these drivers, for instance, instead of light switches, a heating thermostat or a ventilation controller, we can use one touch panel, which is Smart Panel Grenton. A panel that can replace all the other drivers mentioned so far with its functionality. One panel can be used to control a given lamp directly or to run scenarios. For example, lighting for a dinner or for a party. With the same panel, we will be able to control all the roller shutters that will be in our showroom. In addition, we will be able to use it to change the temperature, and not only in our living room with a kitchenette, but in any other room in the house. Control the ventilation, control audio-video equipment, but also in emergency situations, the panel can inform us about what is happening in our house. For example, about the detection of a failure or flooding. Grenton Smart Panel is a small touch control panel with the dimensions of 8 cm by 8 cm. The surface is made of tempered glass, and the panel is available in black and white. The panel has 4 freely programmable control buttons, a built-in light and temperature level sensor, and an OLED display. The assembly of the panel is very simple. It requires a round flush-mount electrical box with 60mm screw spacing. In addition, the panel has an optical gesture sensor. It recognizes up, down, left and right gestures, and also has a distance sensor. In addition to the fact that you only turn on the display when a person appears in front of it, we can trigger any action in the system when a person appears. Although the panel has 4 programmable buttons, it allows you to create so-called pages. We can create 4 pages and give the buttons different functions depending on which page it is on. In fact, one panel can handle up to 16 buttons, and even more if we use the panel in the so-called free draw mode. Although the OLED display is small, it is fully programmable and allows any use of its surface. The Grenton Smart Panel can be used to control any system or device connected to the Grenton system. Using the Smart Panel touch buttons, we can control lighting, blinds or heating, but also the panel can successfully replace drivers for ventilation, air conditioning or audio-video equipment. Both the buttons in the Smart Panel and its display are fully customizable, which means that we can freely adjust both the content it displays and the way it works to the needs of users or a given installation. In addition to the function of controlling the given devices, the panel can also serve as a source of information. It can notify users about what is happening at home, about emergency situations, for example, about the detection of flooding, about the need to activate certain functions or opening doors or windows. But the panel can also serve as a source of information and display important messages from the internet, such as stock quotes, currency exchange rates, or information about upcoming events. The installation of the Grenton Smart Panel is very simple. On the back of the housing, there are 4 terminals. 2 terminals are responsible for the power supply. There is VCC and GND, and 2 of them are communication in system A and B. The panel is simply connected to the main system. In the case of connecting more Grenton Smart Panel touch panels to the Grenton system, we simply connect them to the main system. In a serial topology, it requires a round flush mount electrical box with 60mm screw spacing. Mounting the Grenton Smart Panel touch panels on the wall is also very simple and intuitive. A ring is screwed onto the can. Then, after inserting the touch panel into it, turn it clockwise. After hearing a click, the panel is firmly seated in our electrical box, and we can start using it. Now, look how the configuration of Grenton Smart Panel touch panels looks like. After CLU discovery, and of course after connecting smart panels to the system, you will see a number of such new objects. Let's switch to a different view to see more clearly. And now look. This is my smart panel. This is its serial number, and we have 4 different types of objects here. The first one from the top is a Panel 1 object. This object is responsible for the superior configuration of the entire module. Let's go straight to the events, because there will be some interesting events here. If we wanted to configure it in such a way that with an up or down gesture we can open and close the blinds, it is in the On Gesture Up, Down, Left, Right Events tab where you can configure this type of functionality. We also have an On Proximity Detect event here, and this is an event that is generated when we appear in front of the touch panel. And you can also use it here. We also find some cool features in the embedded features. Of course, we can also define here what signatures will appear when the gestures are made. We can set the time the display will be on after detecting movement. We can even set the buzzer. But look, we can also decide which gestures will be available. We can also turn them off completely and see how we will change pages. We can move between pages using gestures, left, right, or by means of commands. For example, we can set the command left, right under any buttons. Okay, in our case, let's leave the gesture support. The next types of objects are sensors. At Grenton Smart Panel, we have 2 types of sensors. The first is the light level sensor. We can see here now what value it currently has. The second is a temperature sensor. And look, at this moment in the room in which I record, it's almost 23 degrees. Then we have 16 buttons. 16 buttons that we can configure in any way and that can control any object. But we'll get back to that in a moment. And 4 pages, because you already know there are 4 touch fields available on this panel. However, to these 4 fields we can assign a total of 16 actions. For instance, on the first page, we can have from 1 to 4 buttons. On the second, from 5 to 8, and so on. Now see how the configuration looks. Now I would like to create my configuration in such a way that on the first page I will have lamp support directly, for example buttons. Same on the second. On page 3 we will create thermostats, and on page 4 I will show you how free draw works. We'll start by activating the page. When the panel is connected, only 4 buttons are active. The others will not work. So if we want to go straight to the page support, we need to activate them first. For this purpose, we open the panel page object, we come to the embedded features, and now take a look. We have 4 page types here. The first is the inactive page. The second is the buttons mode, then the thermostat mode, and the free draw mode. Inactive. This is indeed the moment when this page just won't work, but we'll start by configuring the page in the buttons mode. First, we typed our buttons. We'll name this page. And now, what is very important, look, my site doesn't have any buttons assigned yet. Now we need to insert the buttons that we would like to work on this page into these 4 touch fields. How do we do it? We just put the button number here. So if I want a number 1 button in the top left corner of my page, I just type 1 here. In the top right corner, the second one enters 2. We do not give the name of the object. The name of the object is only used when handling the thermostat type page. Let's continue. Touch field number 3 will be button number 3, and touch field number 4 will be button 4. At this point, we will check in the buttons mode. After assigning the buttons to the touchpads, my page is now active. So now we can proceed to the button configuration. So we go to the button number 1. You already know the configuration method from the previous parts of this video. So at this point, I will set up this page so that when you click to turn on the lamps one by one, we have a lamp in the kitchen. Now we can immediately give a name and we can describe these buttons. We can make a text name, and maybe we will at this point. Just let it be kitchen. Or we can insert icons that we would like to display. So, I have the first button that will control our kitchen. The second button will control the LED lamp in the bathroom. Here, we will also describe by etiquette for now. I don't know if you've noticed, but I used a Polish sign. The content that will be displayed on the touch panel display may contain Polish characters. Another button will control the wall lamp. And let's call it wall lamp. The last, 4th button, let it be a lamp on the terrace. And a label. And now, after sending the configuration, you will see how the content is displayed on the first page. Now look, we have all the labels, all the signatures on our page, and of course, we can already control our lamps. We've set up the first page, so at this point, after making the gesture, I'm not switching to any other. Okay, let's add a second page to that. Now look, we have one very cool and interesting feature here. Also this page, of course, in the embedded features, we will set the buttons mode. But look at the first page. I have put it in again, so maybe I'll show it. On my page 1, I assigned the first touchpad button to the number 1 touchpad. Number 2 is 2, and so on and so on. On the second page, I would like one button to work on all touch fields. For example, the Smart Panel to behave as if it had only one button. For this purpose, we assign the same key type to the Object ID field of the given fields. In this case, the same key number is entered everywhere. That is, the number 5 is entered everywhere. At this point, if we configure our button 5 and click, we will also control the lamp in the kitchen. Before I show you how it works, this time we will put an icon instead of a caption. We will use the icon named Lamp 1 On. A full list of icons can be found in the manual for the Smart Panel on our website. Now look, we have two modes here, icon A and icon B, two types of icons. Of course, if we enter the label, it will always be the same, regardless of whether the lamp is on or off when using the monostable mode. So this button works as a monostable. Then we display only the B icon. But if we want to use the bistable mode, then we can enter both the A icon and the B icon. This means that there will be one icon for the on state and one for the off state. And maybe we will do it now. We will now change the type of this button to bistable. In a situation when my lamp is off, we will use the Lamp 1 Off icon. And for the position for the lamp on, we will use the Lamp 1 On icon. And in a moment, you will be able to see how it changes nicely. Okay, we send the configuration. And now look. We have the first page where we have the lamps labeled. And now we change the page, where you can see all the buttons work exactly the same way. The lamp is turned on, off, and on, off. All LEDs change their color at the same time, and the icon is displayed only in the center of the screen. So the entire touch panel can be operated with the whole hand, so we do not have to look for a touchpad. On page 2, it works like a single button. What if we wanted to divide it in half? No problem. And now we come back to the page setup for the touch panel. We insert one entry for buttons 1 to 5 and for buttons 2 to 5, but for buttons 3 and 4, we will use button 6. So at this point, we have two buttons, upper and lower. And we'll also configure our button 6. In my case, it will control, for example, an LED lamp. We will assign it an icon so that we can notice the difference. Maybe we will enter an S-Day type icon. We will send the configuration. Well, now on the first page, we have our 4 lamps, and on the second, look, the upper buttons work in this way and the lower ones work as monostable. For instance, the upper button is bistable and the lower button is monostable. This way you can freely assign buttons to a given field. It is not permanently assigned that buttons 1 to 4 are available on page 1. It's really up to you to decide which page the buttons are on, how they will be arranged, and how they will be configured. Okay, we already have the first page configured, which we control the lamps with, the second one too, and both pages are in the buttons mode. Now let's move on to the third page that we will use to control the heating. As you remember from the previous part of the video, our Grenton Smart Panel can replace a number of thermostats, up to 16 in one device. And now, how do we configure the pages for the thermostat? First of all, we start in the same way as in the previous case, but here we choose the Thermostats operating mode. Remember that we have to change the operating mode in the built-in features. And now we will name this page as page 3, and in the Object ID field, where in the case of the buttons mode we enter the numbers of the buttons, we have to enter the thermostat ID. Where can we find it? You can find the thermostat ID after opening the thermostat, right here. This is the ID of our thermostat. We just have to copy it and put it in the field Objects ID. But in this case, we have to put the name of the thermostat next to the object's name. We will call it Living Room, and this will be the name that will be displayed on the thermostat graphic. We move to the next thermostat, so on page 3, I would like to have support for 2 thermostats that I've created. One will be from the living room, and the other one will be from the bedroom. We copy the identifier of this thermostat, and like before, paste it in the place appropriate for Object ID, and enter the name of this thermostat here. So, kitchen. Look, on this page I can additionally insert 2 more thermostats. So on one side we can use 4, and on each of these pages also 4. A total of 1 smart panel can thus support up to 16 thermostats, which means 16 different heating zones. Okay, now let's see how it will work and what it looks like on the display in our smart panel after sending the configuration. Of course, the panel will open on page 1. And now look, we have the first page, this is our second page, and the third page, where we have the thermostats. At this point, the thermostat in the living room is turned off. So with the upper left button, can be turned on with a long press. We can see the current temperature in our living room, and we can change the temperature with the buttons at the bottom. Look, automatically using buttons, the thermostat switches to manual mode and will maintain the set temperature. If we want to go back to automatic mode, we just click on the button. If we would like to completely turn it off, we hold it down longer. Now, with the top right button, we can switch between individual thermostats. In this case, if we had 2 more thermostats, then we would have access to them at this point. This means that this panel can control the temperature in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the children's room, and in the office. And will take the temperature from that room and control the valve for that room. So we do not have to install thermostat controllers in these heating zones. We can have one central that will manage the whole. We already know the buttons mode. We know how to create thermostats and arrange them on the page. Let's create the last page then, page 4, in the so-called free draw mode. We enter a name for this page. We set the mode as free draw. What is this free draw mode? In the case of pages that we created in buttons or thermostat mode, the graphics on the display are drawn automatically by the system, right? We cannot change it. In free draw mode, we can decide what graphics will be displayed and what it will look like. And in fact, the entire display is at our disposal. The buttons are configured in the same way as in the case of other pages. For example, if we want to insert the first, second, third, fourth, or any other button here, simply enter their ID, and this button, the touch field, will have such a function. Also the function of this button, which we will assign to it. But in this case, it's not the most important thing. Now, I would like to show you how to create graphics in this free draw mode. Okay, so I set up the touchpads. I have already set up the page type as free draw, so let's move on to handling it now. And now we support the free draw mode through scripts. That is, we create new scripts. We'll call it free draw. Now, first we add actions to our script, find our touch panel on the list, we select an object of the panel 1 type, and start by using the clear screen method. This is clear the screen. Next, we insert the text or an object, a graphic that we would like to display. But let's start with the text. And now look. Looking from the top, we have 4 parameters here. For the print text method, there are X, Y, text, and font size. They define the start of drawing our graphics on the screen. Now it will expand so that it is also better visible. Here we have the resolution of our screen. In this case, horizontally, it is from 0 to 127 pixels, and vertically it will be from 0 to 63. In my case, we will start to draw or write text, which we will immediately display not from the left edge, but a bit further, for example from pixel number 30. And vertically, also not from the top, but from 3, for example. And now we can insert text here, which will be permanently displayed. And so we'll do that now. For example, we will type in the name of the company, in this case Grenton, and finally choose the font with which the size is to be displayed. We'll insert 2 for now and see what it looks like on our display. So yes, we started with the command clear the screen, then we insert what we want to draw on it, and finally, the last method we will use will be display_content, which is displaying the content. So yeah, now we have a script. Now see what its construction looks like. We always start by cleaning the screen. Insert the content we want to display on it, and finally display it on our display. Now the prepared constructed script is connected to the onDraw event on the page type object for the page which we want to display it. This is our script. It has been assigned. Okay, now let's see. We send the configuration, and now this is our first page. The second, where we have displayed objects with icons, the third with thermostats, and the fourth with our logo. See, the buttons work the same as on the first page, because that's what we assigned, right? Okay, we've displayed the logo, but it looks a bit sad. I would like to add a little more content to make it more vivid. So we go back to our script. Delete the line and delete the last command. We put in the text Grenton. Now we will insert a horizontal line. We choose the draw line method, which means it will draw lines. I would like my line to run through the entire screen. In this case, in the horizontal orientation, it would be from 0 to 127. And I would like it to be approximately at the height of the center of the screen. So we will put it at a height of 31 pixels, here. Okay. One color means full fill, which is full color. Okay. And right away, maybe if we display the name Grenton at the top of the screen, then a line will appear below. I would also like the date to appear on our screen below. How do we do it? We choose print methods. Only now here is an important issue. For strings, we will use print text for variables, that is, values from the system. We will use print float, for example, if we want to display the temperature. In this case, we will select a method of the print text type, and as before, we will insert parameters for the location. We'll start with a horizontal location. Let it be vertical 35 pixels. I'd like the value to display below our line. which was at 31. So we're going to do 40. And insert text now. But I wish that date would change dynamically. So we can't permanently insert a value as text, we only select it as a feature. As a feature from the list of CLU methods, we are looking for we are looking for the data feature. Let's make it smaller. Okay. And now we already have all the items we want to display on the Smart Panel screen. So, what do we do at the end? As before, we will use the display content method, and again, see we have the first clear screen method. Then we insert what we want to display, and display it on the screen. We send the configuration, and we will see how it will look on page 4. And we have page 1, page 2, page 3 and 4. And we can see now that we have the Grenton logo. We have a line that divides our screen and a date that will be taken from the system every time the page is loaded. In this way, you can create any graphics, freely personalized. You can draw your own. We can also choose icons from the SD cards of our Smart Panel. So you can adjust what will be displayed on our screen. What is the need for a given investment? I do not know if you paid attention to it, but when I get closer to it, Smart Panel displays the last page I was on, so it remembers the page we used the previous time, and when we reappear in front of it, it lights up again this old page. I would prefer that whenever I come to our touch panel, page number 1 appears on it. How do we do it? To this end, we open the Smart_Panel1 object. Go to the events and the easiest way to the onProximityDetect event. For example, when we appear in front of it, we can choose the setPageNumber method. Enter the page number, and at this point, after sending the configuration, every time I appear in front of the touch panel, page 1 will always pop up. Of course, it could be page 2, page 3, or some other page. This page can also be loaded with other events. We can, for example, set it from the application, or after detecting motion. And let's see page 1. I'm changing to another. We will wait for the panel to turn off, and again after loading, the panel returns to page number 1. In this way, using the available methods and features for Smart Panels, you can create any graphics, download values from the internet or other devices connected to the Grenton system, and display them on the screen of our touch panel. So if we wanted to find out when we approach the touch panel what the current outside temperature is, what time is it, or for example today's euro exchange rate and the quality of air outside, then you can configure your Smart Panel in exactly the same way and display the content that is relevant to you and that you would like to see the moment you are in front of it, before we turn on the light. Thank you for your attention, and I would like to invite you to the next part of the Grenton Academy, when you will learn about the integration possibilities of the Grenton system and how virtual objects work. See you later!